Chapter 8 is about open borders and how they are an attack on the American fabric and have caused several cracks in those two pillars holding up our civilization or our society. While some open border advocates frame their arguments in libertarian terms, there are also arguments based on reducing government costs, growing the economy, and increasing diversity. Most recently, however, the arguments attempt to appeal to Americans' feelings and are framed in terms of compassion. No one has it as good as Americans have it. Why should we send anyone back to the cartel-run country where they fear for their own lives and the lives of their children? Why should we send anyone back to the poverty-ridden country where no one can find a job and gangs rule the streets? Why should we send anyone back to a country where crops have failed, resources are scarce, and disease is rampant? Why should we lock them up in cages and separate children from their parents? Only a cruel person with no ounce of compassion would do any of these things. This is a complex issue, but consider this imperfect analogy. Is it okay for a perfect stranger to break into your house and eat your food and sleep in your bed? So the argument that these people are just these illegal migrants, illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, are just coming here for a better life, has in the past sparked conversations with people who live in West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach is west of Palm Beach. We've lived there. My husband grew up there. He lived there for 60 years. He almost died there. We know West Palm Beach. And where is Palm Beach? What is Palm Beach? It's commonly referred to as the island. And who lives on the island? Generally, the island is reserved for the mega wealthy. They have their own police force. They reserve their own parking spots for grocery stores. You cannot park on the street. Commercial vehicles aren't allowed over the bridge unless they have work orders for someone on the island. There are hedges so high you cannot even see what the mansions look like from the road. People like Roger Ailes, Rush Limbaugh, and Donald Trump live there. But most people who live there, you've never even heard their names, which is often the case for the uber wealthy. West Palm Beach exists, however, to house the workers for the mega uber wealthy residents of the island. And if you are driving on the island after dark and your tag is not registered as a resident of the island, the police, their special police that they have on the island, will pull you over. It has happened to people in my family. Okay, so knowing all this, why shouldn't my husband and I, when we were living in West Palm Beach, why shouldn't we have just packed a bag or two and taken the kids and walked across that bridge and gone up to one of the mansions and not even knowing who owns the mansion, not knowing who lives in it, or not even knowing whoever's currently manning the door? Why shouldn't we just have gone over there and knocked on the door and said, "Hi, we are here for a better life. We hear your crime rate is really low. And we had the body of a homicide victim dumped on our property." True story. We've had the Latin kings and queens hang out in our backyard. True story. And we see you have a lot of space in this mansion. We don't make enough to pay our mortgage and insurance and electric, and it seems like you have more than you need. You know, we and the kids, we'll only take up a few rooms. And I see you throw out a lot of food. I mean, just from your last party you threw here. You know what? Just let us eat your food too. And it's a win-win. And you can trust us. We are the good guys. We promise. We'll keep our rooms clean. We won't damage anything here. We won't damage your property. Well, I mean, as long as we can use your internet and watch your TV, and we can cook in your kitchen and use your bathrooms and your electricity. Oh, you know what? Can we be co-signers on your bank accounts too? I mean, we're just here for a better life. Are you going to deny these beautiful children a better life? Why didn't we do that? Why shouldn't we have done that? Why shouldn't other people be doing that? I mean, if it doesn't make sense for one family from West Palm Beach to do this to a mansion on Palm Beach, why does this argument work for people just trying to achieve a better life by breaking our laws and trespassing on our nation's borders? And we did knock, right? We've knocked. So is it okay for a perfect stranger to break into your house and eat your food and sleep in your bed? Does it make it okay if the person breaking in lives next door? Does it make it okay if the person needs food and a bed? There are many people out there who desire what the United States claims to offer. Not all of them live to the south of us, but those who do live next door, or those who can find themselves visiting next door, find it much easier to break into the house next door. Is that fair to those in Nigeria or South Africa? Is it fair to those in Rwanda? Is it fair to those in Indonesia? In Yemen? What is better? To let your home be overrun by people with unknown backgrounds, but who live or who are visiting in your neighborhood? To allow just anyone to break your windows and kick in your door to sleep in your bed and eat your food without asking who they are or who they are bringing with them? To allow them free access when you are not there? You fix the door and windows and make copies of the keys for them. Is that better? Or would it be better to go to their home, repair their windows and roof, give them a locked door and a bed to sleep in and food on their own table, throw in a booming economy and plentiful crops? Changing a culture is difficult, especially when we are taught that all cultures are equally valid. The message of all cultures are equally valid, I think, was once maybe more popular, but I think it's still out there. For example, requiring women to wear the veil or the hijab, it's all a part of their culture. We shouldn't interfere in their culture. In the West, though, that translates, there's outrage over photo ideas for Muslim women who were forced to remove the veil. How dare you? It's part of their culture. And that's in the West, where they are not assimilating again. But what about segregation? Think about segregation. Was it evil in the United States when it was going on, or was it just part of the culture? I think people forget that segregation continues in Sharia-run countries and regions. And even if Americans are aware of this segregation, they continue to argue, well, it's their culture. This segregation is just part of their culture. We shouldn't interfere in their culture. Well, the stoning of flirting teenagers and the cutting off of thieves' hands is just part of their culture too. Throwing gay men off buildings or hanging and burning adulterers, well, that's just part of their culture. We can't expect them to have the same values as we do in the West, in the United States. Think about it. This idea that there's no immutable standard against which to measure good and evil, and what's good for you might be evil for me and vice versa, can also be extrapolated to the greater culture at large. No, right? Especially when we rid ourselves of this idea that we talked about earlier, this idea of individual rights and individual liberties and individual responsibility. We might see the beating of wives and the selling of children as evil, but hey, it's just a part of their culture, right? But I digress. Changing a culture is difficult, especially when we are taught that all cultures are equally valid. Bringing freedom and prosperity to another country is difficult because of the corruption that led to the lack of freedom in the first place. And it can be quite costly. And the cost may be in lives, not just dollars. And why should the arrogant United States interfere with how another country is run anyway? So, as to look like we are not arrogant, while simultaneously to demonstrate our compassion, we allow perfect strangers to break down our doors, break our windows, sleep in our beds, and eat our food instead. Now, on a case-by-case basis where they are not strangers, where they treat our home with respect and with gratitude, maybe even contribute to the family budget, and their children play with ours, yes, we would invite them in. Too often, due to our misplaced compassion, however, they bring the attitudes and understandings that led to lack of freedom in their country. They bring those attitudes and understandings into this one. Now, let me be clear. At this point in the missive, I am not talking about the bad people who might be coming over. You know, the ones who are raping and killing and getting away with it. My point is that it is not about compassion either. This is not about violent crime, nor is it about compassion. Remember, I'm not even talking about those who did it legally, like people who come to this country legally. There are good people who came here and made good lives for themselves, but they came here illegally, and we might even be friends with them. But it is about those who came here illegally unintentionally destroying the very thing they came here for. Naturalized citizens are family. Legal immigrants are honored guests who may also become family. Illegal immigrants are those who will slowly take apart the house, one shingle, one nail, one fiber at a time. So as I was listening to this, as I was editing it, I thought of a few more analogies that could be made, even better ones. And if I'm honest, I think there are several more better analogies that could be made. But what about you? Can you think of some more analogies to apply to this open border situation? Let me know in the comments.